What's up, guys? And welcome to this episode of Styles Make Fights. Yours truly, the Menace, the man on the scenes of Menace Tube. And again, we got Bobby the Bomb, the man behind the scenes of Menace Tube.
What's going on?
And we're going to give you our fight predictions for UFC Fight Night 94.
Alright, to begin, we're going to do the Fight Pass prelims main event. We got Randy Brown versus Eric Montano.
We'll say Montano.
But,
I'll tell you what, Eric won the Ultimate Fighter Latin America at welterweight, so that's something to be said.
yeah, that's pretty impressive. You know, he got all the guys in the house.
He's a tough guy. He belongs in the UFC.
But Randy Brown is dangerous. He's undefeated in the UFC, right? Or did he lose?
Yes, Randy Brown
undefeated
is
in the UFC with 2 fights.
Yes, I believe so.
2 fights, I believe. Not exactly sure, but he came off. Dana White's looking for a fight. I think he's.
So we got 2
TV shows. So
yeah, we got a TV star versus would it be an internet star?
I think Tough Latin America is only on Fight Pass.
Unless you live in Latin America.
Unless maybe.
Yeah. So Randy Brown cross trains with some of the guys that I train with here on Long Island. So I've done some training with Randy Brown. He's like, it's like grappling with a spider. He throws his legs up high and like, no, an actual spider, not the spider.
Oh.
Yeah. So he's always looking for triangles, using his legs as other limbs, and he's scrappy. But against a strong wrestler, he will kind of stay there a little bit. But I think this is gonna be a striking match.
I got Randy Brown on this one. I think he'll outstrike him definitely. I don't know. I think he's he comes in a lot harder than Eric. I think he's a tougher guy definitely, and I think we'll finish him.
So I've seen Randy Brown's transition from not being in the UFC to being 2 fights deep in the UFC, and he has come light years in terms of using his distance.
I think he's one of the best guys to come off that show. Because you can argue Sage Northcutt, but I think he's one of the more solid guys to come off. I think he's one of the best guys.
Yes, for sure. So if Sage Northcutt fought Randy Brown would win.
Absolutely.
So that might be a fight for the future.
He's smaller, though. Sage
moving forward, I got Randy Brown. You got Randy Brown. Let's move forward to the main card. We're moving to the featherweight weight class.
Your weight class.
Yeah, I know that weight class.
Yeah.
Chase Skelly versus Maximo Blanco. I was supposed to fight Maximo Blanco last year, but I had to pull out from the fight due to a staph infection. So I do know how this guy fights. And Skelly, I've seen him fight a few times, and he's a tall, lanky guy who likes to get his long arms around people's necks and choke them out.
Both guys coming off a loss. The only difference is Blanco got finished. Skelly lost a close decision, like super close. Before that, both guys on 3-fight win streaks. All 3 of of Blanco's were decisions. I believe 2 of Skelly's were like finishes, submissions, or TKO. And before that, just throughout his whole career, Skelly has way more finishes than Blanco. So both guys coming off a loss, I gotta take Skelly. I think he's way more well-rounded, just all around between his submission wins, his TKO wins, and I think Blanco shouldn't be a problem for him. I think whether it goes to the ground, he'll submit him, strikes at him, he should be able to finish him, or just edge his way out to a decision.
So I actually have it slightly different. I do have Skelly winning the fight. However, if it stays standing, I'm gonna lean a little bit to Blanco just because he does have some solid things that work well in his striking, and he throws a little more power than Skelly. Not knocking Skelly. If I fought him, I think I could fight with my hands down, and I would survive the fight if it was a stand-up fight. Whereas Maximo, you gotta get your hands up. He throws heat, but I think Skelly is a more advanced fighter. Will figure out a way to bring it to the ground, and Maximo is actually I forget what country he comes from, but he's a national recognized wrestler of that country.
Maybe Brazil?
No,
Mexico? He's one of those names.
like Colombia or something like that.
Somewhere down there.
So with that being said, I've got my money. I think Maximo's going to look to take Skelly down, which actually might be his downfall. I'm going with Skelly as well.
I got Skelly. Next up, we got Chris Wade, who trains with Dennis, trains at our gym, representing our gym, versus Islam, and I can't really pronounce the last name. Makachev.
Yes.
I got Wade. On the ground, I think Wade's wrestling is better. I think Islam's just a smaller version of the last dude he fought, but way less skilled. Whether they're watching tape, watching his fights, Wade's striking has never looked better. It's way more polished than it's ever been. So if you look at this fight, they say the wrestling should cancel each other out. They should be able to keep it standing. So Wade should be able to take the fight with his striking.
So like you said, Wade lost his last fight, and he lost on something that he actually prides himself on and has gotten him to this level, and that is his wrestling.
Yes.
And he said he's neglected his wrestling. So this camp, he has been more proactive with his wrestling, and you're going to see a new Chris Wade with, getting after it and becoming the wrestler that got him to where he is today.
He's way more driven than ever.
So I got Chris Wade as well.
I got Chris Wade. Next up, we got Rohan Carnero. I'm going to murder these names. And Kenny Robertson. So I gotta go with Kenny Robertson. Both guys coming off a loss, another fight, both coming off a loss. But Kenny Robertson has a way more solid record. He's been in the UFC since 2012. Strategically, he seems to have better game plans in his fight. Rohan's seems to be one of those guys where he'll just come out swinging, not as technical. But Kenny Robertson seems like way more experienced in the UFC. Rohan actually got cut from the UFC way back and then fought his way back, only losing one fight in 8 fights. But then it beat one guy last year, fought this year, lost. And Kenny Robertson just seems like at the top of his career right now, where Rohan might be towards the end, or who knows, it could be a second coming in his career. But I think Kenny's been in the UFC forever. He's way more solid in just his ground game and his striking. So I got to go with Kenny Robertson.
Because Bobby the Bomb's going with Kenny Robertson, I too am going to go with Kenny Robertson.
Nice.
Yep. The next fight, moving to the lightweight division, is Evan Dunham versus Rick Glenn.
Rick Glenn's UFC newcomer, fought WSOF and VFC beforehand.
Okay. Tough organizations.
Yeah, but my method of betting is you never bet on the guy coming, a newcomer in the UFC, unless they were they fought in a Bellator or Risen, they were beating everyone down. But all those, I feel I don't really trust the competition as much, those other organizations, and plus you see a lot of people lose their first UFC fight. Holly Holm lost her first UFC fight.
So like you said, you don't bet on a newcomer to the UFC because the UFC has done their research in scouting for people to be in the UFC, and they're looking for only the best. So if there's a reason why Evan Dunham is still in the UFC, and this guy's just getting in now.
Exactly.
So I'm going to go for that.
Yeah.
I'm going Evan Dunham.
I'm going Evan Dunham too.
Next, moving to the middleweight class, we've got Uriah Hall versus Derek Brunson. I'm going out with both guys.
Uriah Hall's tough to bet on because he's not consistent. He's so inconsistent because his style is so wild. But the thing you have to look at is Derek Brunson's camp. Derek Brunson comes from one of the best camps in the world in Jackson Wink. So their game plan strategies are insane. So they should be able to come up with a solid game plan to shut Uriah Hall down with his spinning tactics and wild movement.
So with that being said, I spoke to Uriah Hall last time I was in Vegas for UFC 200, and he's originally from New York. The time I spoke to him before I saw him in Vegas, he was training out in California. He's still living there now. And when I saw him in Vegas, he said he's actually moving to Las Vegas. So I think he's living in Vegas now.
Training at Extreme Couture?
I think so. Don't mock me.
Well, most people that train in Vegas train at Extreme Couture.
Yeah. Hang on. Extreme Couture is a very good gym.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But sometimes bouncing around takes time to
readjust to the new style.
Right.
I gotta take Derek Brunson. Uriah Hall's just hard to pick in certain fights. I everyone else loves when he almost killed that guy in the Ultimate Fighter. But that was awesome.
That made him pretty much famous.
Both guys, I think, coming off a loss. I think Uriah won.
Yeah, because Brunson just fought. I think it's someone else. Never mind.
Yeah, I think both guys coming off a loss. Don't quote me on that.
Do you guys ever mix up Derek Brunson and OSP? Let me know, because I always do.
Dude, one's like this tall and one's like that tall. OSP is like way over 6 foot.
I think they look similar in the face.
I don't know.
Not to be racist, because Uriah Hall does not look like them in the face. I'm gonna go with Uriah Hall though, to make it fun.
All right, I'm going Derek Brunson.
He's a New York guy, so.
Okay. Moving on, main event. Dustin Poirier, Michael Johnson. Dustin Poirier fought 145, wins and losses, moves up to 55, 4-0. His most impressive win, I think, against Joseph Duffy. Joseph Duffy's a sick boxer, and now I thought he was actually going to lose that fight, but he came out and really showed heart, put the beat down on him. And we have Michael Johnson. He lost to Nate Diaz.
Yes, but he beat Edson Barboza. Yes.
Oh,
so
yeah,
Michael Johnson has a win over Edson Barboza.
Okay.
Who, if Duffy and Barboza won, who would win that fight?
True. I got to take Poirier on this. I think that you can take the Nate Diaz fight and see that Johnson likes to throw some loopy punches. He likes to come over the top a lot. He likes to throw some hooks. Whereas Poirier is more of a straight shooter with his punches. He likes to come down the pipe a lot more. And I think that's Johnson's downfall. And I think Johnson has a 1-inch reach advantage, but I think if Poirier can keep his distance and keep those straight punches coming down, that Johnson will get frustrated. And I think Poirier, that's a good win for Poirier to boost him up in the lightweight division.
So exactly what you said makes me want to go against Michael Johnson. But I train with Michael Johnson. He is the other Menace in the UFC. Us Menace brothers stick together.
Yeah, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about him having the same nickname as you?
Well, training with him, the joke came up often. Let's fight for the name.
You should.
Hey, I never said no.
You should.
Never said no.
I see his Twitter sometimes and I'm like, oh, what the heck?
Yeah.
Because this is at the Menace, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he rarely goes by the Menace. Well, everyone says Michael Johnson, Michael Johnson. Where people
you're the Menace. Like, you're Dennis the Menace.
Yeah. So again, training with Michael Johnson. He's a very good wrestler. I think that's what's going to give him the advantage in this fight. Where he will
try to grapple with him.
He will take Dustin Poirier down, and that will be the changer. And he's a scrapper. Yeah. You have to.
But people that try to scrap with Poirier, it's shown in the past that they lose. So.
Alright. So I got Uriah Hall. I got Michael Johnson.
I got Poirier and Brunson.
And Poirier.
I think Poirier's gonna come out. I've doubted him. I've doubted Poirier so many times in his fight, and he just keeps winning. So I have to take Poirier.
All right, and that's been this episode of Styles Makes Fights for UFC Fight Night 94. Comment what your thoughts are. We want to know if your guys' thoughts or predictions are better than ours.
Who do you got?
So comment, like, subscribe. See you guys on the next episode of Styles Makes Fights.